Hello and welcome to this edition of Robb's Review, The Bottom Line. I'm Fulton County Commissioner Robb Pitts. Today's show will focus on the financial condition of Fulton County. I will discuss with our Finance Director, Patrick O'Connor, and Sharon Whitmore, the Deputy Finance Director, the financial state of the county, which will include the budget, the fund balance, the county's bond rating, water and sewer rates, the tax anticipation notes, the library bonds, and other financial issues. Stay tuned. This is Robb's Review, The Bottom Line. Welcome back and welcome to Robb's Review, The Bottom Line. Joining me now is Patrick O'Connor, the Director of Fulton's Finance Department, and Sharon Whitmore, the Deputy Director of Finance. Great to have both of you today. Short notice, I understand that, but we've got a lot to talk about in a short time in which to do it. Let's begin with the 2014 budget. Take us back to 2013 when the process began.
Okay. Good afternoon, Commissioner Pitts. It's nice to be with you. The budget process for 2014, we commence late in the summer. The Budget Commission, which is the chair of the board, the county manager, and myself, we begin to review with all of the department heads in Fulton County their budgets, and they present to us all their issues, and we review them. And then we move forward. It's the
Do they make individual presentations to you?
Yes, sir. Each department is responsible to present to the Budget Commission the facts of their budget. So,
sort of like their wish list.
Yes, sir. And then we go through that process for several months, and then the Board of Commission is legally mandated to present to the full Board of Commissioners.
You mean the Budget Commission?
Yeah, the Budget Commission is mandated to present to the full Board of Commissioners by November 15th what is known as the proposed budget.
Okay, let's back up for a moment. When the department heads come before the Budget Commission and make their case for what they want, do you have to accept what they ask you, or is it a give and take, or how does that process work?
We listen to everything the department heads have to say. We take everything under consideration. But what is finally presented to the Board of Commissioners in the proposed budget, those final budgetary decisions are made by the Budget Commission, and then once again it's presented to the full board in November, and then after that the only changes that can be made to the proposed budget is by 4 votes of the Board of Commissioners. The Budget Commission makes no further changes until the full board makes a vote. And after that initial process where the budget is delivered on November 15th, the board may or may not have several work sessions until the middle of December. And at that point in time, the board approves what is known as a tentative budget. And
is the board required to have public sessions? Is there public input required, or is that optional?
Okay, between the middle of November and the middle of December, what I was saying about work sessions, it was the Board of Commissioners to review the budget. The actual public hearings don't come until after the tentative budget is approved by the Board of Commissioners, which is in early January. So once again, here we are in the middle of December. The board puts forward a tentative budget for the public to review. In early January, advertisements are placed out, and then the board has public hearings on the budget to take public input. And usually every year we have hundreds of people that come to the podium to express whatever their interest is in the budget. And then usually there's 2 board meetings, first and third Wednesdays in January. And the normal tradition is for the Board of Commissioners to approve the final budget in the second session in January for the budget year 2014.
Okay. What's been your experience with respect to how much attention does the Budget Commission give to what the public has to say, and how much attention does the Board of Commissioners give to what the public has to say?
Well, the Budget Commission, during the course of the summer, there's many public hearings held throughout the community.
By the Budget Commission?
Yes, but everybody, all the commissioners, the Budget Commission's always, normally all the members are always there, and then we listen from the input from the public. Plus, at those meetings, the clerk's office records all the speakers, and all that is documented, and all that information is distributed to the Board of Commissioners, and anybody from the public can get a copy of everything that's been requested at those hearings. So once again, to answer your question, is the Budget Commission takes into consideration everything they've heard from the public. They take into consideration everything they've heard from the department heads. Also, they take into consideration during the course of the year, different commissioners have comments about what they think are priorities, etc. And we take all that into consideration before the proposed budget is delivered to the full board on November 15th.
Okay. Now, we've talked about on the expenditure side of the budget. When do we decide, or when do you decide how much money we're going to have? Because all of the programs are good, all the services are good, but there's a fixed amount of money that we have to work with.
Yes.
So at what point are you aware of how much money we have?
In the fall of each year, the members of the Finance Department, we have discussions with the county assessor. That's the person that assesses all the values of the properties in the county. We try to get an estimate as to what the changes in values are in the properties in the county. Also, there's new construction, physical growth that goes on in the county each year. We try to get an understanding of how much growth there's been in physical buildings in the county. And the reason we go through that process is Fulton County, almost 80% of the Fulton County's general fund revenues comes from setting the millage rate on the tax digest. So the value of the tax digest, change in values and growth, physical growth in the digest, affects what the ultimate tax revenues will be. So we try to get our best estimate as to what the revenues will be, in the fall, and then we present those revenue projections in the November 15th proposed budget that we give to the Board of Commissioners. And needless to say, once we have an idea of what our revenues are going to be, that's what we know the perimeters will be for how much money we can spend on the expenditure side.
Okay. Now, let's talk about another term that we use quite a bit, and that's, Ms. Whitmore, fund balance or reserves. Explain that.
Well, fund balance is essentially our accumulated unexpended revenues over a period of time.
From previous years?
From previous years, it is whatever we have accumulated. It's the difference between revenues and expenditures over a period of time. The county has a fund balance reserve policy, which is 8.33% of our budgeted expenditures. And so that is the level of fund balance that we try to maintain. And that's essentially about one month's operating expense.
And you said that's a policy, it's not law.
No, sir. It's a board policy affected by board resolution.
Okay. Now, we don't have to follow that, do we?
We don't have to, but if we fail to follow our own internal reserve policy, then we will begin to have issues in the investment community with our credit rating. And when we go to issue our long-term debt and our short-term borrowings, like our tax anticipation note, then our ability to draw interested investors will be limited.
Okay. Now, you mentioned tax anticipation notes. That's a term that we hear also. Explain what a tax anticipation note is.
A tax anticipation note is a short-term borrowing instrument that the county uses on an annual basis to...
What does that mean, short-term borrowing?
Short-term borrowing, meaning it's within 12 months, within a 12-month window. We borrow and repay within a 12-month window. actually shorter than a 12-month window. But the tax anticipation note is us borrowing against our property tax levy. So we know that property taxes will be levied, billed, and collected during the course of this year. And for cash flow purposes, once we have used that reserve that we carry over into the new fiscal year, once we have used that and we reach like our cash low point, then we would look to issue our tax anticipation note to raise cash that we use to fund operations until our property tax revenues come in the fall of the year. Property tax bills generally are issued in the middle of August, and for the county, they're generally due in the middle of October. And so October and November are usually our peak months for revenue collection in our tax-based funds like the general fund and the South Fulton Tax District.
There's nothing unusual then about the issuance of a tax anticipation note, as I hear you saying.
No, sir. It's fairly common for local governments to use that as a means to generate cash for those months when their tax revenues are not, when their tax revenues are declining, because you get so much of your revenue in during a short period of the year that you need a mechanism to generate cash when you're waiting for that next cycle to start.
And typically, how much do we issue in tax anticipation notes?
For 2013 and 2014, we are issuing 200. We issued 200 million last year, and we're issuing 200 million again this year.
Okay. All right, we're going to take a quick break. There's much to talk about, so stay tuned. We'll be right back with Sharon Whitmore and Patrick O'Connor talking about the finances of Fulton County. Welcome back, and we're talking with Patrick O'Connor of the Finance Department, the Director of Finance for Fulton County, and the Deputy Director of Finance for Fulton County, Ms. Sharon Whitmore. Okay, let's talk about what does the bond rating mean, and how important is that to the county and to the citizens and the taxpayers?
The bond rating is very important. It sends a signal when the county has to borrow funds for major capital improvements. The better rating we get, the lower the interest rate is. And when we issue 20 or 30-year bonds, that adds up to a lot of money if you can get a lower interest rate. In our last major issue of bonds several years ago, we issued around $167 million known as library general obligation bonds, because we're renovating and building, new libraries throughout the county. And that bond issuance was well received by the investment community. We received an ultra-low interest rate, almost close to 3%, which is exceptional. And the county received a AA credit rating from all the major credit rating agencies on Wall Street. What that AA means is that we're very, very high investment grade.
Okay, what's the highest rating?
The highest rating is AAA. We're AA, and it's just splitting hairs between the difference. So we are there's probably about 8 or 9 different grades. So
but AAA is the highest.
Yes, sir.
And we are a AA.
Yes, sir.
Are any of the surrounding counties AAA?
The only county that is AAA is Cobb County, and what helps them to be AAA is, they have sales tax money that the county directly receives above and beyond the regular local option sales tax, where 30 years ago, Fulton County, that extra 1% was given over for funding for MARTA, to support MARTA. If we hadn't done that, our credit rating would be AAA. But once again, the difference between AA and AAA is very, very minor. We're very proud. The commissioners should be very proud to have a AA rating on our long-term debt.
But the MARTA situation does impact us from the point of view of not having a AAA.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Because we've given up a funding stream to Martyr for Martyr to fund their operations. Also, a high credit rating for businesses thinking about relocating or expanding in Fulton County. It sends a message to the business community that our government is very solvent. And
What do they look? What do the rating agencies look at when they want to rate a municipality or a county?
well, one of the key things they look at is what the county's fund balance is, and the reason
And that's that fund balance that we talked about.
And the reason they look at it is just in terms of liquidity. They want to make sure that you have enough cash on hand to meet, the county's, annual debt service. And they look at your history of revenues and expenditures, making sure that that you're balanced. They look at a history of management, or key employees in place to have the, the experience and depth of experience to help run the county. They look at the broad economy, what's economically happening within the county. So there's a series of indicators, but once again, one of the most important is the fund balance.
Do you happen to know what's the state of Georgia's rating, if you know?
I believe it's either double or triple A. I know it's very high.
AAA.
I think it's triple. Yes, I think it is triple A. I'm 99% sure it's triple A.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Let's talk about water and sewer rates.
We have some of the lowest water and sewer rates in the Atlanta metropolitan area, and high quality water service and water sewer service. In fact, in 2012, late in the fall of 2012, we implemented a 4% across the board water and sewer rate reduction. So our rates are very low comparatively.
So how were we able to lower rates by that percentage?
We were able to lower our rates as a result of the board taking action to close a small supplemental wastewater treatment facility that was averaging the county a cost of about $6 million a year. So when we closed that facility, we passed the savings on to our water and sewer customers.
And that's unheard of.
It's very unusual, yes, sir.
And-
To close a treatment plant
And a rate reduction.
and to pass the savings on to your customers, absolutely.
Okay, and you mentioned library bonds earlier. Let's talk a little bit about the library bond issue.
As Mr. O'Connor mentioned, we issued about $167 million, and that was for what we have deemed our Phase 1 projects, which were the major expansion
But
projects.
the total issue, the backup of them was $275 million, wasn't it?
Yes, that is the approved amount. We did take, this is a referendum general obligation bond issue, so we did have to go to the voters and seek approval.
And they said yes.
And they said yes. And that was based off of a library facility master plan, which was approved in late 2007, I believe, early 2008. So that plan called for the construction of, I think it's 8 new library facilities and the expansion of 2, and then the renovation of many others.
The 8 new libraries and the 2 major expansions that's all in Phase 1.
Yes, sir. That's all in the Phase 1 project.
And those
plan.
bonds have been sold.
Those bonds were sold, and as Mr. O'Connor indicated earlier, we got a great interest rate on them. We did, in fact, we used some of the Build America bonds, so those are in part, the interest payment is in part subsidized by the federal government as part of that Build America bond program. So those were very well received in the market, and we will be back in the market with our Phase 2 bond issue sometime late 2016, early 2017. We need to have those issued before, I think it's August of 2017.
So the balance of the authorized $275 million would have to be issued before 2017?
In 2017, the way that referendum was presented, we had to identify each year's maturity and the proposed stated interest rate in the bond referendum. And so in 2017, if we have not issued the phase two, we begin to lose bonding capacity because maturities will start to roll off. And so that is really the only trigger for that particular date, for that August 2017 date.
Okay, well, let's talk about what impact does the overall economy have upon the county and the county's bond rating, our financial standing?
Oh, it has a major impact. You know, we, the county finance department, recently in the last several weeks had to give several presentations to the credit rating agencies. Standard & Poor's is a major agency. Fitch is another major credit rating agencies. And we gave them numerous articles about the Fulton County economy. And in the last 12 or 18 months, I mean, Fulton County went through a very serious recession downturn, but in the last year, year and a half, new construction has really started to take off in the county. Also, the value of homes in the last 12 months are up around 18%. So we're seeing a strong revival, you know, within the county. Also, the county, Fulton County, of all the major counties in the metropolitan area, both in terms of absolute population and percentage gains, Fulton County been growing at over 2% a year. We've been adding over 20,000 in population. So out of all the surrounding counties, we've been growing faster on a percentage basis and faster on a population basis, which says a lot about, you know, the future of Fulton County. People are coming here, businesses are investing here. It's given current trends, I think Fulton County has a bright future.
And that has a positive impact upon the finances of the county.
Oh yes, if you have a strong economy, then you should have the ability to raise what funds you need to pay your debt service on your bond obligations. Yes.
If the tax assessor is able to pick up all of the growth that Mr. O'Connor is referring to, then not only would Fulton County, the county government, benefit from it, but all of the municipalities would benefit from it as well, because it increases the total tax digest, and they all levy their property taxes off of that same digest. So it's the economic boom is excellent, but we have to do our part in making sure that the assessor's office is able to pick the value up and add it to the tax digest, and then defend it.
Okay, we haven't talked about the capital improvements. What do we mean by capital improvements, and what's ahead with respect to capital improvements?
In the 2014 budget, we were able to set aside about $6 million for some pay-as-you-go capital improvements. And a capital improvement is any significant, I think for the county, we categorize it as anything over $50,000, major renovation or expansion of county facilities. So we have a number of county facilities. Could be, you know, significant roof work that's needed. We have some new facilities that are coming online.
How much was in this year's budget?
About $6 million.
Okay, we're about to run out of time. I'll be right back with my closing thoughts on today, so stay tuned. And we could spend a lot more time talking about this, but there's a limited amount of time. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Robb's Review, The Bottom Line. I hope that this show has been helpful in bringing you up to date on the financial condition of Fulton County. Until next time, this is Robb's Review, The Bottom Line.